My beloved child, there is a reason this message has reached you at this exact moment. Before you move even a single step away from it, stay with it for a while. Something quiet has already started unfolding around your name, even if you cannot see it yet. What was recently said about you was not ordinary, not random, and not something anyone expected to come up in that way. A conversation happened when you were not there. No warning, no signal, no preparation that your name would enter that space. It just came in naturally, in the middle of something else. And in that moment, someone who usually keeps their thoughts hidden finally spoke in a way that even surprised them. What came out was not planned at all. It came from a deeper place, the kind of place they normally protect. Stay with this because it is getting more important than it first sounds. And the most unexpected part is not only that they spoke, but how their voice shifted while speaking. At the beginning, everything felt normal. Light talk, simple topics, nothing serious in the air. But then something small changed the entire direction. A simple question came up about the people who truly matter, the names that return in silence, the thoughts that appear when everything becomes still at night. Right at that moment, everything slowed down. There was a long pause, the kind of pause that carries meaning without words. And then your name came into the conversation. Not forced, not rushed, not random. It arrived slowly, like it had been waiting there for a long time. Stay until the end, because this is where it starts to get deeper than expected. What surprised everyone was not just your name being spoken, but the feeling connected to it. They were not talking about what you do, but what your presence leaves behind. They tried to explain it in simple words, how some people stay in the mind even when they are not around, how absence does not always mean distance, how someone can remain inside thoughts without making any effort. As they spoke, even ordinary moments were linked back to you. A place they pass suddenly reminds them of something unfinished. A sound brings a memory back without warning. A small sentence from someone else pulls your image into their mind again. Nothing about it was dramatic, but it was real, and real things stay longer. They admitted that recently, even when they try to focus elsewhere, your presence returns in small and quiet ways. Not loudly, not in a forced way, but softly, like something that refuses to disappear. And the people listening noticed something else too. Every time your name was spoken, the tone changed. It became softer, slower, more careful. That kind of shift cannot be faked. It shows in pauses, in the way eyes move away for a moment, like words are being chosen carefully before they are allowed out. Stay with this, because what came next changed everything again. Later, when they thought no one was paying full attention, they said something very honest. They never expected one person to stay in their thoughts for this long. That one line changed the entire feeling in the room. Not because it was loud, but because it was true without effort. And once truth enters a space, it does not leave easily. They started remembering small details connected to you, things that normally would not stay in memory unless something inside decided they mattered. A tone in your voice, a moment you reacted in a certain way, an energy you carried that stayed longer than many louder experiences in their life. This is something important to understand clearly. People do not keep details unless something within them marks it as meaningful. And clearly, something inside them marked you in that way. Then a question was asked, simple but direct. Why now? Why speak about this at this moment? Another silence followed, deeper this time, heavier, because some answers are not difficult to say due to confusion, but because they are true in a way that is hard to explain. And then the answer came. Sometimes distance does not reduce feelings, it only makes hidden thoughts louder. Stay with this final part, because sometimes what is unspoken grows stronger in silence. That was what they said, not because it was prepared, but because it came out on its own. Distance often exposes what closeness quietly hides. When everything becomes silent, what is left in the mind starts to feel more clear, more honest. The conversation slowly went deeper after that moment. They admitted there were times when they almost reached out, moments when they almost said everything, moments when honesty almost slipped through completely. but something always stopped them at the edge, not because the feeling was missing, but because timing never felt fully right. Stay with this, because what comes next adds another layer to it. They said your name has recently started to feel different in their thoughts, more present, more noticeable, harder to push away. That is not something people say lightly. It usually means something inside them has shifted without them fully understanding when it began. Then they revealed something else. There is one memory connected to you that keeps coming back. They did not describe it fully, but the way they spoke made it clear that this moment still carries emotional weight for them. When a memory is protected like that, it usually means it has not lost its feeling. It is still alive in some quiet corner of the mind. The listener then asked a simple question. Do some people return to our thoughts for a reason? Again there was silence, followed by careful words. Some connections do not fade just because time moves forward. That line did not feel like a casual reply. It felt like something understood through experience, something lived, not imagined. They admitted they tried not to think too deeply before, but recently that has become difficult. Something keeps coming back without permission, quietly but repeatedly, like it refuses to disappear. And maybe the most surprising part is this. They are starting to wonder if what they once ignored might actually deserve attention now. That single thought changed the mood completely, because it means something they once set aside is no longer staying buried. They described you as someone whose impact was not understood immediately, but slowly over time. And that kind of presence is rare. Some people enter loudly and fade quickly. Others enter quietly and stay in the mind far longer than expected. Stay until the end, because what was said next carries even deeper meaning. Before the conversation ended, they spoke softly, almost like they were not fully aware they were saying it out loud. Some people enter your life quietly, but remain louder in your thoughts than those who arrived with noise. That line was not repeated, because it did not need repetition. Everyone understood it the first time. After that, silence returned, but it was not empty. It was full of thoughts that had not yet been fully processed. They did not move on quickly. They stayed in that moment, slightly surprised by how much had already been revealed without intention. When asked again why this still matters now, they finally answered in a way that made everyone listen more closely. Lately, thoughts about you appear without warning, especially in quiet moments. Not once, but repeatedly. Simple things trigger it. A sound, a place, a passing detail, all bringing you back into focus. And each time it happens, there is a pause inside them. That pause matters, because people only pause when something reaches deeper than expected. They admitted there are things they never said when they had the chance. Not because the words were missing, but because timing always felt uncertain, and emotions were harder to explain than expected. Then came something even more meaningful. Sometimes silence protects feelings until those feelings become too strong to ignore. After that, everything felt still again, because it sounded like something learned through real experience, not imagination. It meant they were carrying more than they ever showed on the surface. When asked if they regret not speaking earlier, they did not respond immediately. That delay itself became the answer. Then slowly they admitted there are moments they replay in their mind, wondering if things should have been said differently, if some truths should have come out sooner. And right there, everything became more intense. They mentioned a specific detail about you that still remains with them. Something small but unforgettable, something that never fully left their memory. Not because it was big, but because it meant something deeper than it appeared at the time. And this is where it becomes even more important. Because sometimes the smallest detail is the one that stays the longest in someone's mind, even when everything else fades. The calm way you speak when others expect noise. The way you leave a mark without even trying. A presence that does not ask for attention but still receives it naturally. That kind of quality is rare, very rare, because most people are noticed quickly and then forgotten just as fast. But some people are understood slowly and remembered for a long time, and when they said this they looked away again. Like even speaking it felt like exposing something too personal. Then something deeper followed. They realized that not everyone brings peace just by being remembered, but thoughts connected to you somehow do exactly that. That surprised the listener, because statements like that are never random. They come from something real, something felt over time. Then they were asked if they think you know any of this. They smiled slightly and said no, and maybe that is why it still feels incomplete. That word stayed in the air longer than expected, because unfinished thoughts do not simply disappear. They continue existing in the background of the mind, quietly active, quietly alive. There are moments they almost reach out in thought, then stop themselves. Moments when your name appears without warning. Moments when they wonder if some connections remain even without words. This is not simple memory anymore. This is emotional presence, and emotional presence does not fade just because time moves forward. Stay with this because it goes deeper than it first sounds. Then they shared something even more subtle. There is a difference between forgetting someone and staying quiet about them. That difference changed the meaning of the entire conversation. Silence does not always mean absence. Sometimes silence means something became too meaningful to speak about lightly. When they were asked when they first realized this mattered, they answered softly that it began when even small things started bringing you back into mind. That is how it starts. Not with big events, not with dramatic moments, but with small reminders that appear on their own. No effort, no search, just sudden flashes of memory. A place they pass, a sentence they hear, a song playing somewhere, a quiet moment when the mind has nothing else to hold on to, and suddenly your presence returns again. Not loud, but clear enough to be felt strongly inside. And that is where everything stands now, still unfolding quietly in the background. Stay until the end, because something important is still building underneath all of this. And then came a sentence that shifted everything again. Some people remain important even when life becomes full of new distractions. That line did not need explanation. Everyone understood it instantly. Because importance that survives time and distraction is not ordinary. It is real, and it stays. After they said it, another silence followed. But this silence felt different from the earlier ones. It was not confusion. It was not hesitation. It felt like truth finally had space to breathe without resistance. And maybe the most unexpected part was this. After speaking so openly, they seemed lighter, like something they had been holding inside had finally been released just by saying it out loud. That means those thoughts were not new. They had been there for a long time, waiting for expression. It means your name has been sitting in deeper places than casual conversation can reach. Stay till the end, because this is not finished yet. What made everything even more striking is that the conversation did not end where it was expected to. After a short pause, your name returned again, without anyone asking, without any prompt. That alone changed the direction again, because when a thought comes back after it has already been spoken about, it means it was never fully completed inside. Something about it still remains open. And then something even deeper followed. They leaned slightly forward and spoke more softly, almost as if the words were meant for the space itself, not just the people listening. They admitted that recently there has been a quiet feeling growing inside them, that something connected to you was never fully finished emotionally. Even though they tried to move forward mentally, something keeps returning without permission. That kind of honesty changes the atmosphere completely, because unfinished feelings do not reappear unless they still carry meaning. Stay until the end, because something even deeper is still coming through this. And then came the details they did not even realize they were revealing. They started describing how certain memories connected to you remain unusually clear. Not the loud moments, not the obvious ones, but the small quiet ones that most people forget without effort. The subtle expressions, the brief pauses, the unnoticed gestures, those are the parts that stayed. And this is where it becomes important, because the mind does not hold on to details without reason. Something inside decides what is worth keeping and what is not. And clearly, something inside them decided that those moments involving you were worth holding on to. Stay with this, because sometimes the smallest memories carry the strongest emotional weight. even when everything else has moved on. A certain look, a short sentence, a small moment where nothing big happened, yet it stayed in memory, as if time refused to erase it. That is important, because hearts that feel deeply do not only store big events, they keep the quiet ones alive too. And when small details stay alive for long, it usually means something deeper inside protected them without permission. They said recently, those memories have started returning with surprising clarity, almost like something within them is gently pushing them to revisit what they once ignored. One listener then asked, "Why now?" The answer came slowly, carefully, because some understanding only forms after enough distance has passed. Distance removes noise and reveals what was quietly important all along. Stay with this because what followed changed the tone completely. They admitted there were moments when they tried to replace those thoughts with distractions, staying busy, focusing elsewhere, avoiding stillness. But every time life became quiet again, the same thoughts returned. Your presence had left a deeper mark than they openly admitted before. That is not casual memory. That is emotional recognition arriving late, but arriving strongly, like something finally finding its way back. Something huge is waiting here, because what they said next felt hard to ignore. They described you as someone whose energy stayed calm in their memory, even after life around them became complicated and noisy. Not everyone is described that way. Many impressions fade when pressure increases. Many names lose meaning when time passes. But they said your impression remained steady, unchanged in feeling, still clear in their mind. Even now, your name carries the same quiet weight it once did. Stay until the end, because this gets even more revealing. Someone then asked if there had ever been a moment when they almost reached out. A pause came immediately, strong enough that the answer was already understood before words were spoken. Then they admitted there were multiple moments when they nearly did, but stopped because they were unsure how honesty would be received. That means the thought was already moving toward action, even if it never completed, and unfinished intention often grows heavier over time, not lighter, because silence stretches it instead of ending it. Don't skip, because this next part matters deeply. They explained that the strongest thoughts often arrive at the most ordinary times, late hours, quiet mornings, simple afternoons where nothing special is happening, and suddenly your name appears again, not forced, not searched for, but naturally present in their awareness. That surprised the listener, who then asked a question no one expected. Do you think this ever really ended? The answer came very softly, almost fading into silence itself. No, I think it only became quiet. That single line changed everything, because silence is not absence. Silence is often where feelings move deeper instead of leaving. And when something moves deeper, it becomes harder to remove. Stay till the end, because something even bigger is unfolding. They also admitted that recently a small trigger, a phrase or passing comment, brought you back into focus instantly. And what surprised them most was how naturally the emotion returned with it. That kind of response is not created. It is still alive somewhere inside. Then they said something no one forgot. Some people leave quietly, but they do not leave empty space behind. That was clearly about you. Because empty space means nothing remains. But what they described was different. Your presence still exists in memory, even without effort. Don't skip now, because the conversation reached a deeper level when they began speaking about timing. They said maybe some truths are only understood when enough time has passed for confusion, fear, and pride to become weaker than honesty itself. That line showed reflection, not impulse, because honesty usually appears when someone is no longer trying to hide what they already feel. And what they now seem to understand is simple. Your impact did not fade. Your memory did not disappear. Your name still carries feeling inside it. Something huge is waiting here because the final part sounded almost like they were speaking to themselves rather than anyone else. Before the topic changed, they looked down for a moment and said quietly, "Some people are remembered because of what happened," and the sentence stayed unfinished, as if what follows is something they were not yet ready to fully say out loud. Others are remembered because of how they made you feel. That sentence stayed in the room long after it was spoken, because everyone there quietly understood something important. Events fade with time, but feelings do not leave in the same way. They stay behind in layers, in quiet moments, in unexpected thoughts. And if your name was connected more to feeling than just memory, then something deeper is still alive beneath the surface. Stay till the end, because this is still unfolding, and it is far from complete. A name spoken with care, a silence filled with unfinished thoughts, a confession hidden inside calm sentences that did not sound emotional on the outside but carried weight within them. All of it points toward one simple truth. What they shared recently about you did not come from something casual. It came from a place that had been quiet for a long time, something they may have tried to ignore before, but can no longer fully push away. And once truth starts finding its way out, it does not limit itself to just one moment. It keeps returning in different forms, until it is finally heard clearly. What no one expected was that after everything already said, your person gave one last reflection that sounded simple at first, but carried the deepest meaning of the entire conversation. They did not raise their voice. They did not try to create a tension around it. Yet everyone in the room felt the shift immediately. It was clear these words were not new. They had been carried for a long time before being spoken. Stay with this because something important is building here. And this is why your name stayed present in that conversation longer than anyone thought it would. They said there are certain people whose importance becomes clearer only when silence has enough space to reveal it properly. That sentence was slow, measured, almost like each word had already been thought through many times before being allowed out. Then they added something even more revealing. Sometimes you only understand the real value of someone when normal days start feeling slightly incomplete without them appearing in thought. That idea changed the meaning of everything again, because ordinary days do not lie. They show what remains when emotion is not being forced. If someone appears in your mind during regular moments, without reason or trigger, it means the connection is not artificial. It exists naturally, without effort. Stay until the end because something huge is still waiting here. They then shared something even more honest. Recently, while conversations continue around them, their own attention sometimes drifts elsewhere without control, and those drifting thoughts repeatedly return to memories connected to you, not forced memories, not chosen ones, just sudden returns that arrive on their own, like fragments of feeling resurfacing without permission. A face remembered, a voice recalled, a moment replayed without intention. That kind of return is powerful because it does not depend on effort, it simply happens. Then someone asked them directly, "What exactly is it that stays with you?" For a moment they hesitated, not because they lacked an answer, but because honesty becomes heavier when it is fully admitted. Then they finally said it. It is the feeling that something meaningful was never fully understood at the moment it was happening. That single line carried more depth than everything before it, because sometimes meaning only becomes clear after time has already passed. And when understanding arrives late, it does not arrive softly. It arrives strongly, with clarity that cannot be ignored. Stay till the end, because the next part may explain more than everything said before. And then came a final thought, spoken almost quietly, like it was not meant to be turned into a statement but slipped out anyway. They said some people do not leave loudly, but they also do not leave empty space behind. Instead, they leave something that keeps returning in thought when everything else becomes still. That was not said as poetry, it was said as realization. And in that moment it became clear that your presence in their mind was not tied to one event, one conversation, or one memory. It was tied to how they felt in your presence, and how that feeling still returns when life slows down enough to notice it again. Because in the end, what stays is not what happened. It is what was felt when it happened, and sometimes that is what never fully disappears. They admitted there are moments they once considered normal, even unimportant, that now appear completely different in memory. Small details that looked simple at the time now feel strangely meaningful when remembered again. That is how hidden meaning returns without warning. quietly, slowly, and once meaning returns, it changes the way every old memory is understood. Stay with this because something important is building here, and it is not as ordinary as it first sounds. At one point it felt almost like they were not speaking to the room anymore, but thinking out loud to themselves. They said, "Your name now carries both calm and weight together." That is a rare combination. Some names create noise, some create distance, but only a few create stillness and reflection at the same time. According to what they shared, your name is one of those, and that is not something people say casually. It comes from experience sitting quietly in memory. Stay till the end because the strongest moment came when no one expected another confession. A listener smiled and asked, "So if your name appeared in front of you again, what would happen?" There was a long silence after that, longer than before. And then the answer came in a very quiet voice. "I think I would listen more carefully this time." That sentence changed the meaning of everything that was said before it, because listening carefully means something was not fully heard before, or not fully understood in the moment. And now there is a sense that it deserves more attention than it was given earlier. That is not a small realization. That is a shift in understanding. Stay until the end because something even deeper was still hidden in what followed. They also admitted something else. Recently, they have started noticing how rare genuine impressions are in life. Many people enter conversations, but very few remain in thought after the conversation ends. Then they added something that stayed in the room longer than expected.